And good morning. It's 8:22 here on Joppa Radio 96.3 FM. And we have a guest with us this morning on preliminary election day, Dan Ventura from Fairway Mortgage. And Dan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Wynn. I don't know what I have to do with the election, but thanks for having me.
Well, we elect to keep our credit as much as we can to keep our credit good, right?
That's kind of cringy, but yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah. So wanted to talk today about the Equifax meltdown, the data breach that occurred on September 7th. I'm sure that you heard about it.
I did hear about it, but yeah, I never really understood it. I don't know what that was all about.
All right, so here are the facts as they are out there. 143 million people were affected. Their social security numbers, date of birth, driver's license numbers, etc., were part of the breach that got taken by hackers. And it's important to know that you've really got to take a look at what your credit is now and constantly keep an eye on it, because there could be things that could cause problems for you down the road. People could assume your identity, open up false charge cards, purchase things through your name, file fraudulent tax returns, which I have seen in the past before. It's not fun. So it's really critical for you to monitor your credit to be sure that everything is as it should be.
So this was something. Equifax is one of the large credit reporting firms, right?
Right, the big three. Yeah, okay. There's Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian.
Okay.
So all three of the major bureaus controls all the credit data or manages all the credit data for everybody, in the country. And when somebody like Equifax goes down, then it's a very, very big deal. And they set up a website that you could go to check to see if you were compromised. And the name of that website is. Do I have to do the www for your
No, you don't
for your
have
audience?
To.
Okay.
Although you just did.
www.equifax.equifaxsecurity2017.com.
Oh my gosh. Equifax Security
2017.com just equifaxsecurity2017.com. And you can just Google it, and there's a million sites already set up for it. But you can go on and see if you were part of the data breach. You'd enter just a few basic pieces of information, and it'll tell you yes or no. In my case, I was not affected. My wife was not affected, but my daughter was. Oh. So what we're doing is you click. There's an option there to click to enroll for free for credit monitoring through the site to be sure that nobody's using your credit that shouldn't be. But there's also some steps that you can take, that consumers can take, that will help them. And one of them is to get a copy of your credit report. To get a copy of your credit report, I don't mean from like Credit Karma or any of the other places that advertise credit monitoring service. I'm talking about the free one that is for everybody, and it's annualcreditreport.com. And you can request a copy of your credit report, a free copy once a year. And it's always a good idea to get a copy of your credit report so you can keep an eye on things to make sure that everybody, trade lines and accounts are what they should be.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to write that down. So It's annualcreditreport.com.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's free. Like I said, you can get it once a year, and it's an excellent idea. The difference with this breach versus past breaches. When somebody goes and hacks and steals credit card numbers or debit cards or any like bank accounts, those numbers can be changed. Happens all the time. People get a new card, their account gets compromised. But when social security numbers get hacked, that's a big deal, because that, along with the date of birth, is all somebody needs in order to open up credit. So people don't change their credit, their social security numbers. So this could be a problem, maybe not today or in the next 60 to 90 days, but it could be a problem a year from now, 2 years from now, because those social security numbers do not change. And do you remember, you probably do, because I think you're a tad older than I, when when I got my license in the state of Massachusetts, my driver's license number was my Social Security number.
I remember that.
So
yeah.
that's how loose we were with Social Security numbers. But, with technology and the way everything has changed, it's, it's important to guard it and protect it. And just constantly monitor your accounts, your credit card statements, making sure that everything that is being charged was in fact charged by you.
Okay. So the Experian one is Experian Credit 2017 or 2017?
Swing and a miss.
Oh, no.
Like not even close.
Oh, no.
Seriously. It was Equifax.
Ah, gee whiz.
Data breach, not Experian.
Equifax.
So it was Equifax Security 2017.com.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah, swing and a miss on that one. But, it's all over the internet. There's, as of yesterday, there were 23 class action lawsuits brought already, which is going to skyrocket in the months to come with, with all that is unknown still about how everybody was affected.
Yeah.
But the important thing is, and I can't say it enough, is monitor your credit and make sure that there's any fraudulent activity that you report it right away.
Huh.
And two quick tips. One is that if you suspect that somebody's breached your data and is trying to use it, you could do what is called put a credit freeze on your Social Security number.
Okay. So credit freeze on the Social Security
Yeah.
number.
So that means when somebody goes to pull or check your credit, they are not able to do so unless they have your permission. So say my data's been hacked, I've been breached. I put a freeze on my credit report. I need to apply for credit, apply for a mortgage, hopefully, or a car loan or anything like that. It's an automated system. You call the bureaus, you enter your PIN number, and you're able to unlock your credit so that somebody can check it, and then you are able to put the lock back on it, the freeze back on it.
Oh.
And that's critical because I've seen situations where people have had put holds on their credit report, and we're not able to access the data. And then they, like I said, they go ahead through an automated procedure. It may sound overwhelming, but it's really and truly not. It's a very easy thing to do. So that's something that credit freeze is good. And then the other thing is put a fraud alert on your credit. And a fraud alert means that somebody has stolen your information, and that as a creditor, we are to double check and verify they are who they are. So like when I've seen those things show up in my business, I've had to verify with the client a few things that they have asked for in their fraud alert. So they may say, call me back at the number, and list their cell phone number or whatever. But it's an important step to deter people from using the data that they have stolen.
So the credit freeze and the fraud alert, what website do you go through to do that?
Experian. No. You could do those right through the main bureaus, and I've got all the phone numbers and things like that. But I don't know if I can give them out. But if you Google how to freeze your credit, it'll list the numbers of all three bureaus, and it's a completely automated process. Like I said, that you can get a PIN number and then change it or change the access, freeze it, unfreeze it. And all of the three credit bureaus offer it: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And they also all offer a fraud alert guard where you, like I said, you could just put an alert on your credit before anybody, checks it. Has to clear a few hurdles that would make it more challenging for them. But I just can't stress enough the importance of this because of the data that was taken, is to keep an eye on things very, very, very carefully and constantly, not, every 6 months, every year, but going forward for the next, 5-10 years at least. And the other thing is to just take a look for other family members that may not have the time or the ability to check into their situations. Like I did it for my daughter. Do it for your parents, do it for any siblings or friends. It's just a real important thing to do because I've seen people that have had their identity stolen, and it's made their life a disaster for a while. until they could get things sorted out. So it's a pretty serious thing.
Oh, it certainly is. And again, any questions, they could always talk to you at Fairway Mortgage in Newburyport, too.
Yep. Okay. Dan Ventura.
Okay.
Yep, that's me.
All right. Your email address is
danv
okay.
at fairwaymc.com.
All right.
And happy to help anyone with any questions. I just I study credit. It's my thing, and anything I can do to help any of your listeners, I'm more than happy to do so.
Oh, I appreciate that. Hey, Dan, thank you very much, and good luck with that. Now, just because you might show up as good now as far as the having your data stolen, that doesn't mean it wouldn't be stolen later on down the road.
It's a work in progress.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. So aren't we?
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Hey, Dan, thank you so much, and we'll get you back on again, too.
Thank you, Win.
All right. Dan Ventura, Fairway Mortgage, our guest here on Joppa Radio, 96.3 FM. Our guest right now is Dr. Bill Boylan from Byfield Parish. And Bill, good morning. Welcome into Joppa Radio.
Good morning, Win. Great to be here. It's been fun for me over all these years, our discussions together, and I look forward to more.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. You follow me everywhere I go.
I guess that's right.
But and everywhere we go, we leave trails of things that we've done, and that's been going on since the beginning of time, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Yeah. In fact, I think the whole idea of being alive and being created by God is to follow Him.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
She just says, "Follow me. I know where I'm going, and you follow me, you'll find your way."
That's right. You just keep the faith. That's what my father kept telling me. Keep the faith.
Keep the faith, or give it away.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. That's another one too.
Yeah.
If you can do both, I'm sure you can.
Sure.
But what you wanted to talk about today was something about people who left breadcrumbs along the way. So. Except that they were a little bit harder to eat than breadcrumbs.
Yes, they're stoned. Maybe that's to our great advantage that they really paid attention to the history, and they carved it in literally stone. We have so many around here that are interesting. We have 3 milestones left from that early 1700 period, one at Governor Damon, one over here off the Common. Mm-hmm. And they were markers, like we use today on the highway, to tell you how far you were from Boston. The Boston Stone is the place from where every mile in colonial Massachusetts was marked.
Oh, okay.
And the earliest road was right up here to Newbury. It was the Bay Road. It was the first authorized highway in America.
Would that be what's Route 1 nowadays, or 1A?
More or less. No, it wove through Wenham and then came out through Rowley. It crossed over to Governor Damon Mansion. It went up and back where today I think it's Middle Road. Then it cuts across to Boston Road. Okay. And it goes across Route 1 and down through the marshes and then up to the Common. And there's a milestone at the Governor's Mansion today. And there's one when you turn onto Boston Road from Middle Road. And there's another one when you come up to the Common out here. It's just interesting. And these all go back to the early 1700s.
Now, are these stones, are these things that would jump out at you, or you have to know to look for them?
Oh, no, they're not hidden. Well, the one at Governor Damon is very low. You have to pay attention if you're coming up onto the campus and you're looking at the Governor's Mansion. That's part of the Historical Register. It's in front of it, but it's very low. But the one at the corner, I think it's Boston Road that turns there, that's up to my shoulders. It's a big square stone, and so is the one at the bottom of it must be the Upper Common, where the Frog Pond is.
Okay, yeah.
Well, when you come up, I think it's Hay Street. I'm there so much I don't pay attention to names, but you come up onto that road, and right there on the right as you come in, there's the stone again. It's not my height, but it's pretty close.
Yeah? How about that?
So it's interesting.
Yeah. And these these stones have been around a long time, and in fact, this area has been around a long time too.
Yeah. Well, one of the surprising things shown to me, when I first came, I was just out of school. I'd been called to the church. I understood, even at the beginning, this was a historical place, yes, but it was a historical church. And I began to get word from people who were very themselves interested in the history of the place. They began to fill me in. In fact, the first dinner I ever was at, I was invited to be at, my wife and I, at one of the families here. The gentleman had been on the 250th anniversary celebration of the Byfield Parish Church.
Okay.
And the Byfield Parish Church, he made clear to me, this is the first independent congregational church in America. And then he began, and it took him all afternoon, but I was interested, so it wasn't any struggle for me. And he gave me the whole history. Well, of course, I didn't remember everything, but a lot of things popped out at me. And so I said to myself, well, I really need somebody to sit in my car, take me to all these sites and show me, because I can understand, but nevertheless, I can't visualize it. So one of the old-timers, Dan Brown, he was the one, by the way, he and Dick Cunningham, these will be very familiar
Dick
words.
Dick Cunningham, yeah.
Yeah. He and Dick Cunningham used to go down to the marsh and build those haystacks. They didn't use them anymore. They were for visitors. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the ones that did it. So I said to Dan, do me a favor, take me around and show me everything I need to know. And one of the most phenomenal things was right in his backyard. He took me out back and he showed me, I think it was 7 Viking gravestones.
Viking.
They now I don't know what he knew because he didn't tell me a lot. He did have them covered. He was trying to protect them, and he told me they were Viking stones. And of course, I don't read runic, so I didn't know what they said by any means. And it was interesting. They were down, in back of his property. But then a number of years later, he had died. I got a call from a man who told me he was down in New Jersey, but his son lived here in Newburyport. And he called me up and he said, I've been doing some research on the rune stones, they called them. What happened was there was usually a priest with the Vikings, and wherever they went and stayed for any length of time, any kind of a settlement, they left a date on a stone. He carved it. That was his job.
That was the priest's job.
That was the priest's job. They could read and write, and they would write the date, if nothing else. So what happened, this gentleman called me and said, I was referred to you that you could show me where the rune stones are. And I said, well, I do know where they are. And then he got telling me about himself, and he said that he had done a TV show down in New Jersey on the Byfield stones. And he said, I'll send you my DVD of the program. And he sent me a packet of information that, as I learned now, I didn't know this from Dan, but he told me, the materials told me, that in 1944, a runologist from Wisconsin, from the University of Wisconsin, came to Byfield and deciphered the stones. He translated them.
Wow, a runologist.
A runologist, yeah. So this was all in the packet. I read it. I watched his program. And then, at that time, the Byfield Parish Church, and Byfield, by the way, for people listening, if you're new to us, Byfield is really a part of Old Newbury. Newbury broke up into, it was first Newbury, then they separated, and then Byfield was a parish of it. Never became a town. It was a parish of Newbury. And then the port area separated out as its own city. And then they separated out the western section, and that's West Newbury. So originally it was just Newbury.
Yeah, okay.
But when I'm talking about Byfield, I'm really talking about Old Newbury. Old Newbury. Yeah. So anyway, in all my interest in the history of it and what have you, I delved into these things. And then he said, well, I'm coming to visit my son who's in Newburyport, and gave me this heads up that he had done this work. And then sent me the materials because he knew of my interest. And that's when I found out, because I didn't know, and I don't think Dan knew exactly what was on the stones. He didn't read the writing either.
Right.
But the thing that jumped out at me was the fact that he said on the telephone, and then it was in the materials, as I say, that the king of the Vikings, I think it was Olaf, but don't quote me on that because I didn't study the Vikings. But anyway, the king became a Christian in the year 1000. And in those days, if the king became a Christian, you were a Christian. It was part of the deal. So the Vikings became Christians in the year 1000, and they switched to our calendar.
Oh, okay.
So now they're using our dates. And the first stone that was found with the date after the Vikings changed faiths was 1008, and it's in Sweden. They had been there. The second date is in Byfield, 1009.
Wow.
Yeah, the Viking. And I thought a lot about it because of my general interest, but also I said, well, wait a minute. It's on the back of Dan's property. Dan lived about 4 miles from the ocean edge and about a mile probably from the Parker River. Now, if these folk were just traveling through or, exploring or in generally on the move, probably they wouldn't have left a stone in the first place. I can't imagine what it took for runologists to carve the date in the stone.
Yeah. Oh, if they, especially if they generally just left it, if they stayed anywhere for a length of time.
Yeah, but these folk had 7 people buried.
Oh.
Yeah, and it read, and I don't have I didn't have the materials to go back and look it up, but I got to find them. I have. Believe me, after 50 years, boxes of materials.
I believe you.
Yeah, oh yeah. But I remember generally that what it said was it gave the name of the person buried, and it was a request to raise this man from the dead. And I thought that's interesting because here you have these Vikings are brand new Christians. 9 years after the king becomes a Christian. And the most important thing to them, apparently, because I've had a lot of funerals, and there's a lot of gravestones in our graveyard, and I know what's important to people because they'll leave it as a statement on the stone. We loved our mother, or it's just all over the lot in a way, but it's more personal and family orientated. It's very interesting to me as I thought about it that these Vikings, the thing that was so prominent, and they put it on the gravestones, was the expectation that as Christ rose from the dead, they would someday too.
Wow.
Yeah, it was their focus. They were brand new. They'd only been, as I say, Christians, as far as we know, for about 9 years here in Byfield.
Yeah.
But what can't but believe is that they had a village here. You have 7 gravestones, and they took time. They were big stones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were not little pebbles.
And they had to cut them and write on them and do all that.
Oh, yeah, they had to do all of that. So and by the way, when the Puritans came, 628 years later, a long time later, and they settled in the same area. Yeah, and Byfield Parish Church was established in 1702.
Okay.
The graveyard, the burial ground, as they officially called it, is not down where these Vikings were in sod. It's up here in sand. There's a real sandy ridge where our church is built.
Yeah.
And the burial ground.
The one in front?
Both of them in a way, but particularly the one up by the old church.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sandy soil, so it was easy to use for burials.
Sure.
But the Vikings are really in more lowland, and so that tells me again that this was a little bit of labor to bury them.
My gosh, yeah.
So I'm just sure that I'm pretty much sure that that long ago, over 1,000 years ago, there was a village in Byfield of Europeans.
Huh. How about that?
Yeah.
I wonder if they left any cookbooks.
Yeah, no, I don't know. But it amazes me how the history bubbles up through the ground here in Newburyport.
Yeah.
It really does.
It really does, yeah. And this goes back much further than your strength is the 1700s.
Really,
Yeah. But this is much before that.
Yeah. Well, they do. We do know that Eric the Red and some came over into Labrador and up in there. But there's another document, and I didn't. I was supposed to get it, and the man forgot to send it to me. I wish I had it. But it was Nathan Tufts. He lived in Merrimackport, and he and his wife were very instrumental in the cleanup of the Merrimack River. And I knew Nate and Roz Tufts very well. And one of the gifts he gave to people who would support the work was a history of the river, of the Merrimack River.
Oh.
And one of the things I remember him telling me was that they found many, many notches where they would winch the longboats up the Merrimack. So the Vikings were doing that way back, too.
Huh. Oh, they were pretty smart.
And they were. Yeah, there was no grass growing on them.
No. My gosh.
Yep.
Well, Bill, we're going to have to get you back again. Maybe give us a little more modern history.
Yeah.
There's I'm sure that we have some folks who, as you mentioned, haven't followed you along the way, and you have a lot of stories that I think that they would be very interested in.
Well, it's a great reprieve for me. I can be repetitive.
Yeah. Works for me. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you, Win. Always a pleasure. Really.
It's a pleasure to have you with us as well, and we'll get you back again.
Okay.
All right. Dr. Bill Boylan, Byfield Parish in Byfield, our guest this morning here on Joppa Radio 96.3 FM.